Now, I know we have all heard many opinions on the scuffle on the sideline and everything like that, but JJ Watt joined the Pat McAfee show and he talked about it. And if he's ever seen anything like that, and obviously JJ Watt, future Hall of Famer, played in this league a long time at a very high level, and a baller, has been a part of a lot of wins and a big fabric of the NFL. And so he gives his thoughts on it, and they have like a pretty interesting discussion on it because everyone who's in this conversation has played in the NFL for the most part. Obviously, you got Pat McAfee, AJ. They all played, and so it's a conversation that's interesting because it's between a bunch of guys who've done it before. So take a listen to the way they talk about it, and I'm interested to hear what you think about how they talk about it on the other side.
Yeah, JJ, Deebo and Taybor Pepper got into quite the little tizzy on the sideline for the night. Taybor Pepper got into quite a little tizzy on the sideline this weekend. Jake Moody missed a few kicks, and Deebo said, "I'm going to choke you, bitch," and kind of hit Moody on the way out as well. What'd you think about this? And I believe Shanahan came out too and said, like, hey, if Deebo is going to hold him accountable, Jake Moody he's talking about, then you got to let him do that, especially as a captain that Deebo is.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have not seen the throat grab of your own teammate in a while, possibly trying to remember the last time I've seen it in general. I got nothing off the top of my head, but wildly entertaining. I specifically remember when it happened. We were in the studio and I was like, hang on a second. Was that his own teammate that he just grabbed his throat? So it was, I don't mind holding your own guys accountable. I do think that kickers have an insanely tough job, and it is extremely clear if they accomplished or did not accomplish their job. So I don't think they necessarily need too many other people to be like, hey, man, do your job. Like, theirs is clear. Like, if I don't do my job on a play, you might know it, you might not, until you go back and watch the film later. Kicker is nuts and bolts. Like, you either put it through the uprights or you didn't, and nobody knows more than that guy that he just missed it. So I don't know what necessarily you're going to say in that moment. You could tell me better, Pat. What could somebody say to you to be like, oh, you're right, I should be putting it through the pipes?
So I've been in this type of situation before, and not where I got my throat grabbed, obviously, but I was cropping a day, I was hitting shanks, and it was close game. So I think Peyton actually came up to me and was like, hey, we need one, bub. Like that was like, and I'm the punter, Peyton's quarterback. So like, if I had any smart ass in me or whatever, I'd just go, we'll get a first down. Like, but I obviously did not say that. It's Peyton Manning. But Peyton and I had a relationship. Like Peyton and I were like boys. Yeah. So like when Peyton would come over and say it, it's like, yeah. Robert Mathis has come up to me before when something happens. He says something to me. And as a punter, I have felt okay going up to guys on the sideline and being like, hey, all good, need one, let's move. Like, I think it all is kind of a tell of your relationship with.
But does that to you, like if Peyton comes up to you and says like, hey, Pat, we need one here, are you like, oh, okay, I'm going to punt this completely differently? Shoot, Peyton just told me something.
No.
Or are you like, well, no shit, I'm trying, bud?
No, I don't take it that way. I think like if you have a relationship with somebody, like I think this is like a more telling of the relationship within the locker room.
There's a chance. Yeah, JJ.
Such a specialized position.
Yeah, and for me, I forget, somebody texted me, old teammate of mine, and said like something, I forget who it was. Might have been Denzel. I forget who. Somebody said, couldn't imagine somebody grabbing you or Vinatieri by the neck on the sideline. It was like, well, that would never happen because of our relationship with the locker room. Like there would never be a situation where if Deebo came over to Moody, Deebo on the team.
Yeah.
Okay, Deebo, very high. Thank you. Deebo comes over and says like to Vinny, lock in. Like Vinny's not going to get offended by that. Like Vinny's going to be like, yeah, I like just kind of take it for what it is. And then long snapper is not going to say, you know what? Deebo Samuel, don't you do that? Like
Shut up.
That's not going to happen. I think it's more so of like you know what I mean? Like I think
that's why like it was a yell back, not like, I mean, most of the people, if somebody grabs your throat, that's not going to end without more physical altercation. But I think knowing that your position on the squad and Deebo's position on the squad, That's why it didn't get past. He kind of had to fake hold me back from Moody, like the
reality.
Let me get him. Yeah, like hang on, Deebo. If they're cutting somebody here, I can promise you, it's not the guy that scores all touchdowns.
Yeah, and he had a rough week, Pepper.
Yes,
he had a very rough week with everything that happened, and we obviously understand that. But I think that was more telling of the relationship, more so than anything, and also the reality of the totem pole of this entire situation.
I mean, Shanahan's saying that too after. Like, hey, if Deebo is going to tell him lock in, like, I think Pepper's overreacting a little bit.
Yeah. Hey, it's there's a lot of use. There's a lot of use.
Not a lot of that guy.
They them.
You gotta love it. You gotta love it when the guy that got his throat grabbed, the coach is like, "Hey, no, you overreacted."
Well, and Moody,
you were in the wrong.
Crazy.
I just assume Moody gets. I've met Moody. Moody seems like a really cool dude, chill dude, and he knows he's obviously not playing great. But like somebody coming over to him that he has respect for and his friends was saying like lock in. I don't think that like ruins his. You know what I mean? It's like
He's a young guy, right, Moody?
yeah. Third year, second year, third year. But it's like
What works better for a specialist? Is it the guy coming over and saying like, "Hey, we need one here," or is it the hand around his shoulder like, "Hey, man, it's okay, you got this. Like, we're okay." I'm very curious because it's such a specialized position.
Yeah, and for me, I never was good enough to kick in the NFL. So, making the field goal, I don't know if I'm necessarily the right guy to be like, the mental side of this entire thing, because that was actually not my MO in it all. But I know, like, Vinny, anytime he had a bad day, like, nobody was talking to him, but he's Adam Vinatieri, But if somebody did come over to Vinny, it would always be like a nice reminder that he's the GOAT, So, a young guy missing 3, I think he missed 3 kicks in one game that, could, and having an older guy come over and be like, hey, we need one. I didn't find it as disrespectful as Pepper would, but also it's like, I don't think it would ever happen just because of the relationship.
So again, obviously, I think we can all agree, like a scuffle on the sideline, it's not that big of a deal. That stuff happens all the time. We've talked about that, but it's the back and forth, right? Like it's an interesting conversation too, because Pat McAfee is a specialist as well, and the way they talk about it is like, Taybor overreacted to Deebo Samuel coming over to say lock in. Obviously, I'm sure it was said much differently than just lock in, because Taybor clearly took it a specific way and felt like, it wasn't a productive, like that's the way Taybor describes it. He described it as it wasn't very like productive way of a lock in kind of a thing. So I don't know, but obviously they go back and forth about the throat punch and all those different types of things, and it's an interesting situation, interesting scenario. Obviously it's one of the main things to come out of this game. I am happy for one that they won that game, because if they didn't win that game, that would be like the number one story, I think, in the NFL. I mean, it already is one of the top stories, but there would be gasoline poured on it, because I think it'd be representative of that loss. And so now it's become more water under the bridge. 49ers can move on from it. But again, I found it interesting to listen to these guys who've played, who've been in those sidelines, who've been in those locker rooms, and how they perceive it. And I thought it was a pretty interesting conversation. Now, again, I don't expect, the big thing that Pat was like kind of hitting home on is like, if we have a relationship, it was more indicative of the relationship. Like, does Deebo have like a really strong relationship with Taybor Pepper and Jake Moody? Probably not. And so like what Pat was saying is like, man, if we have a good relationship, like, yeah, you can come and you can tell me certain things because there's the mutual respect there, and we are connected on like a personal level, not just we're like coworkers, which at the end of the day they are. And so that seems to kind of be like the root of like what happened. It's like they don't really probably have a relationship like that. They aren't friends, and that's okay. You don't have to be friends to be on the same football team. There's so many guys on that team that it's just really hard to do. Obviously, it doesn't mean you can't be cordial or whatever, but I just found the conversation to be interesting, and I'm curious to know what you guys think about it. So let me know in the comments below, and as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more updates.